Hello guys, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Zenematics. So today's video is about the syllabus changes in our O-level syllabus that have come from 2024 to 2025. And if you are somebody who's appearing in May, June 2025 or later, these are the syllabus changes that have been brought forward in our syllabus. So before I start the video, I'm going to tell you guys that this video is going to be in 4 different portions. Number 1 is we're going to discuss how the paper pattern has changed for O-levels. Number 2, we are going to discuss what are the things that have been added to the syllabus. Number 3, we're going to discuss what are the things that have been removed from the syllabus. And number 4, I'm going to give you guys advice how to handle all of these things at the end. So if you're somebody who's appearing in June 2025 or later in O-levels, you must watch this video till the end. This video is going to be a brief overview of what has been changed. It is not going to go in depth of all the ideas, and it's not going to be doing a lot of examples. For that, I'm going to make a separate video which will include all the examples, all the ideas that have been brought forward. So this is just an overview of what has been changed, what hasn't been. So if you've done a decent part of the syllabus, like 30-40% of the syllabus, it's a good idea to watch this video and have an idea of how things are changing in O-levels examination. I'm going to keep this video in English because it's a global thing. They have changed the syllabus for everybody and I want everyone to benefit from this video. So if I'm not clear about something while explaining, you're most welcome to leave a comment below in the video and I'll try to re-explain it if I'm unable to explain it in the first time. So let's go. Let's start with the paper pattern. And the first thing that we are going to see is the paper pattern. Okay, so with the paper pattern, they're not major changes, but they're important changes. Paper 1 is still a non-calculator paper and paper 2 is still a calculator paper. So that bit has not changed. The timing for paper 1 has been unchanged, and it is 2 hours. It used to be 2 hours, it is still 2 hours. But for paper 2, it used to be longer. It used to be 2 hours 30 minutes. It is now going to be 2 hours only. The marking for both papers is a little bit changed as well. So paper 1 used to be 80 marks. Now it's going to be 100 marks. That means you will be experiencing more number of questions in paper 1, which is actually a good thing because having more questions in paper 1 means having questions with less complicated calculations in paper 1. And it's actually a better thing for students, in my opinion. And for paper 2, the marks have been unchanged. It used to be 100 marks. It is still a 100 marks paper. And we are expecting that there are now going to be lesser number of questions with more marks, each question containing more marks. So this is the overview of the paper pattern. So number of papers hasn't changed. The calculator status hasn't changed for O-levels. Paper 1 is still a non-calculator paper. Paper 2 is still a calculator paper. And the timing has been changed for paper 2 and the marking has been changed for paper 1. So that is the only thing that you guys have to remember. Now let's just dive into our part 2. And we're going to look at things that they have added to our syllabus, and there are a lot of minor things that have been added to our syllabus, and I'll explain one by one each of them. Some of them are really minor. I'll tell you guys along the way which are minor things, which one you don't have to worry about, which ones you have to really pay attention to. So number 1 is that in the chapter of mensuration, the syllabus used to not explicitly tell that curved shapes can be prisms as well. While teaching, many teachers, including me, we used to clarify that if some object has 2 equal and parallel faces, which means it has a constant area of cross-section, it will classify as a prism. I used to name it as an upright shape, okay? Now, the syllabus didn't used to do that, and the general perception was if a kid is asked about prisms, every kid would think about shapes which have all the flat surfaces. So a rectangular prism or a triangular prism. Now, whenever they were given a problem where a shape was a prism but had curved surface, they did not use to pick it up. And for example, if you see a cake slice, it is a prism because it has constant area of cross section. It has 2 equal and parallel sides. So the syllabus has now improved their definition, and it is now exactly what it is meant to be. Now, what does it mean for you guys, for students? Do you have to do something about it? The answer is no. They have just improved their end of the syllabus, and you guys were learning the exact same thing with us before this time as well, and you don't have to change anything. So in this section, there is an addition, but it doesn't concern you guys. You guys have been learning the same idea before as well. Number two, reciprocal functions. This is basically graphs of functions where we used to have you guys memorize the shapes of the graphs. Now, with a reciprocal function, kids do remember that reciprocal functions are like, crescent shaped functions. And what they have to now learn is that if you add a value to this, for example, if I have 2 over x, so that was a blue function, and if I want to add a value to this function would go 2 steps upwards and it will come over here. So the graph is going to shift vertically upwards or downwards depending upon how much you add or subtract from the value. So this b is added basically to the function. So a over x, the shape we used to remember earlier as well. But now onwards, what we are going to do is we're going to add some number to it. It will shift upwards. If we're going to subtract something, it is going to shift downwards. Similar has been added to exponential functions as well. In our syllabus, we used to teach students that exponential functions do look like this. So this used to be an exponential function. And if I add something to it, student should be able to see that it will shift upwards, and if I subtract something from it, the student should be able to see that it will go downwards. So for reciprocal and exponential functions, you have to know that they can move upward or downward if you add or subtract some value to that. Okay, now it's a minor change, but the function shapes were already there in the syllabus. You just have to know that if you add something to it, it will go upwards. If you subtract something from it, it will go downward. Now, number 4 is exponential and growth and decay. Exponential growth and decay. Now, this is an extension to an already given topic. We were studying the formula for compound angle or compound interest already. And for compound interest, we used to deal money matters till now. Like if somebody has invested money on a compound interest basis and so on. The formula is going to be still the same. It's an addition to the understanding and application of that formula, that if something is exponentially growing or something is decaying, this formula can be used for that. So for students, you don't have to learn a new formula. You have to actually learn the examples for exponential growth and exponential decay, and the formula is still the same that we use for compound interest. Number 5 and number 6 are really important, and they will be tested very rigorously in June 2025. Now, surds are basically square roots, and there are 4 major workings for surds that you have to know. You have to know how to simplify a surd. You have to know addition and subtraction. You have to know multiplication. And number 4, you have to know division, which is also called rationalizing a surd. And that will be tested in Cambridge this year. That is for sure, because this is a trend with examiners that whenever they add a new thing into the syllabus, they will test a simpler version of the question in the immediately coming exams. So keep an eye out. I have already uploaded a video for surds. I will try to put a link somewhere over here, and so that you guys are able to access that link and learn all the technicalities about surds. The number 6 is also very important. They have added conversion of recurring decimals to fractions and backwards in our syllabus, and it's a very important idea. It used to be in IGCSE. They have brought it to O-levels as well, and it is a very important idea and it's a very easy working, by the way. It's not at all a complicated thing to do. You must watch a lot of examples before you go and sit in your exam, and be careful, it will be tested in June 2025. Number 7 and number 8 are basically, and number 9 are also basically from algebra. We used to teach you guys how to expand if 2 brackets are being multiplied. Everybody is very comfortable with this idea. So if you have to expand x plus 1 and x plus 2, you guys are very much comfortable about it. Now, the idea that if you have to expand 3 brackets, how to do that is, firstly, you're going to expand x plus 1 and x plus 2, and then you're going to multiply x plus 3 with it. So that is the main idea. I'll do a lot of examples on this as well before your CIEs, and so that you guys are well equipped before you sit in the exam. Number 8 is that you have to know how to factorize this equation. This equation is ax cubed plus bx squared plus cx. Now, the idea is that we teach you factorization only for quadratic terms. We don't teach you factorization for cubic terms. So the only idea is the student should be able to identify that all of the terms have one x term at least. So take out x common, take x common, and now if you look closely, it will be ax squared, bx, and c. And now you guys can see it's a simple quadratic equation inside the bracket. It is going to be middle term breaking inside the bracket. So you should be able to do this. And if you're not able to do this, just wait for a while. I will upload a couple of videos and a lot of examples on this in upcoming month or so. So we will be able to cover that over there as well. Another idea, number 9, is that you are now required to represent inequalities on a number line and graphs. Okay. Now we have been representing inequalities on graphs by shading the required region and so on. And for inequalities on a number line, you guys have seen this process in various books, and now you will be formally required to do that. -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, for example. So if I make a line from here till 3, and I make a hollow circle at -1 and a solid circle at 3, you should be able to identify that this is showing an inequality which is saying x is between -1 and 3, but -1 is not included and 3 is included. So this is the idea. I'm sure many of you have seen this idea in your books, but if you notice, it was never tested in our O-levels exams before. Now it is formally a part of our exam, and you guys are expected to do that. Now for graphs, they have changed one thing. They did not used to strictly follow the idea of a dotted line and a solid line on the graphs, but now if you have an inequality where you have where the number is not included, it's going to be a dotted line, and if you have an inequality where it includes a number, it's going to be a solid line. So this is an idea that they have now formally accepted, and they will use it from now onwards. And number 10, interpret the gradient of the curve. Now we have been doing this in graphical solutions. This is nothing new. This is something that they have just now announced that they will formally test. They have been testing it in the past as well. And in my graphical solution notes, we also cover this. After you find the gradient of the tangent, there is one part that I make everybody memorize is what does this gradient represent? Now, the gradient, if you have any graph and you have to explain what a gradient represents, what you have to say is, it is the rate of change of y-axis quantity per unit change in x-axis quantity. It's a very simple idea. So it's a rate of change of y-axis quantity per unit change in x-axis quantity. So for whatever y-axis quantity or whatever x-axis quantity you have, you just have to name those axes, and that is the line you have to write. It's a very simple idea. I do not think you have to do anything new with that. All right, for number 11, you have to understand the graphs of exponential growth and decay, and that is again from the extension of the exponential graphs, so there's nothing new over there. You just have to understand that for exponential growth graph, it would look like something like this, and if there is a decay graph, it is going to look downwards, but it's going to be curved. And all right, now for functions, they have introduced a lot of things. Now we already saw for graphs of functions, we saw that they have included the upward and downward shift. Then they have included that you have to identify what an exponential growth or a decay graph looks like. And then now you have to know how to sketch a graph by the knowledge of important points. For example, You have to know where the turning point is for a quadratic equation from its completed square form. That is also required now. You have to know what are asymptotes, like, which lines you cannot touch with your graph, and you have to know which graphs have some sort of symmetry, and you have to particularly remember that symmetry. And I will be covering in detail a whole video, a longer video with everything they have added in functions over here, because functions is a topic that they have drastically changed, and that is like one of the early sections they have changed, like, a lot. Then composite functions used to be a part of IGCSE already. They are also now a part of O-level syllabus. They're very easy, but they are still a part of our syllabus, and they're going to be tested very much as well. It's going to be really important. Then domain and range of functions is also included. This used to be an A-level outcome, paper one outcome. They have included in O levels, of course, with not as much complexity, because they have excluded the domain and range of inverse functions or composite functions, but they have included the idea that you have to see how to tell the domain or range of a given function, and that is going to be going to be something that is included. Number 15 is something that they used to test without calling it a name, and there are many past paper questions where we have frustrum, but they never named it as frustrum. So what is frustrum? It's mensuration, basically. So if you imagine, if you have a cone and you cut the top part of the cone out of it, so if you cut some part of the cone out of it, if you have a bigger cone and you cut a smaller cone out of it, so the shape that remains, this is called a frustrum. So now onwards, it's going to be called frustrum. There are many past paper questions which had this shape and they did not use to name it. And that is why we did not use to teach you it as a name, because it's very understandable that if you have to find the volume of a frustrum, it's basically, it cannot have a new formula for itself. It's basically a bigger cone minus a smaller cone that was removed from the top. So it will give you the frustrum formula and volume. And similarly, for surface areas, it is going to be the curved surface is going to be the curved surface of the bigger cone minus the curved surface of the smaller cone. That will give you the curved surface of the frustrum. But if you see closely, frustrum has two additional spaces as well. It has two circles, a smaller circle on the top and a bigger circle at the bottom. You have to add them later on as well if you are looking to find the entire surface area of the frustrum. So main idea is you just have to know how the shape is. You don't need to learn new formulas for that. Number 16 is from circles, and in circles, many books used to have alternate segment theorem, but the syllabus did not used to have explicitly alternate segment theorem. Many teachers used to teach alternate segment theorem while teaching circle properties, but since it was not a part of the syllabus, I did not used to teach it. It was not tested in our syllabus directly ever. Sometimes many kids who knew how to use it were able to take some advantage of it, but it was never a part of our syllabus directly. Now it is categorically a part of our syllabus. So this is it's a small property. It's a very easy property. I'll upload some examples of it as well. So alternate segment theorem in circles is now a part of our syllabus. You must expect that it will be tested in June 2025. Now with trigonometry in 3D shapes, angle between a line and a plane is now a part of our syllabus. So they will show you a 3D shape and a line would be coming down onto a plane, and you have to understand that you have to find how you have to create a right angle triangle over there and find the angle between the line and the plane. And number 18, and the last item is bar charts. This is one very small change that they have brought to statistics. And for statistics, the only idea is that for bar charts, they have introduced composite bar charts and dual bar charts. I'm going to do a detailed video on both of them. They're not difficult. They're just like, you just have to know them. Many of you guys have seen composite and dual bar charts in geography, especially where you're comparing rainfall from one month to another month, where you're comparing the production of two different items in the same year, where you're comparing the total output in terms of minerals or power sources in a particular year. So there they have been used, but we will do that for mathematics as well. They're not difficult at all. Now, this concludes our second section. These are all the additions that have been brought forward to our syllabus. Now, before I move on, I'll talk a little about it. Are these a lot? The answer is no. Yes, functions have been changed drastically. That is the only chapter that has been changed drastically. There are 3 introductions to our syllabus. Surds is introduced as a whole chapter. Conversion of recurring to decimal places is a whole thing. And then the last thing is the addition of alternate segment theorem in the circles. For functions, it's a major thing. You have to keep an eye out. The paper is going to be filled with a lot of things that are going to be related with functions, graphs of functions. Keep an eye out for that. It's going to be very important. I'm going to do detailed videos on those with a lot of examples, but just keep in mind they're going to be important. Now let's talk about the good parts. The good parts are what have been removed from our syllabus. So locus or loci as a whole have been removed from our syllabus. Matrices of all sort and matrix transformations is no longer a part of our syllabus. So transformation is also changed. The concept of proper subset. So subsets are already a part of the syllabus. Proper subsets are not going to be a part of our syllabus. How to increase or decrease a ratio is not going to be a part of our syllabus. This is something that you will not find a lot of questions about in past papers. They introduced this idea in 2018, but it did not pan out really well because the questions were really confusing, and I think the kids were not performing really well, and the examiner was not very clear about what they wanted to do with that outcome. So they have removed that outcome again. Dials will not be a part of our syllabus. You would have seen a lot of dials which used to read. You'd have to read a value. They have excluded that. Dials reading is gone. If you guys in functions, you guys must have noticed that we write function notation like this: f of x is equal to. But if you go to the older past papers, you would see this notation as well. F is mapped onto x by this value, this function. So this notation, this symbol will not be used anymore, and you will always see f bracket x now onwards. Construction of shapes is gone except for triangles. So you'll have to still construct triangles by using compass and scale, but perpendicular bisectors are gone, angle bisectors are gone, and this is, I'm talking about construction perpendicular bisector. As far as equation of a perpendicular bisector in coordinate geometry is concerned, that is still part of our syllabus, and that is tested very frequently. You must do that every time before you go for an exam. And angle bisectors are gone now. Proving congruent triangles is not a part of our syllabus. Now, that does not mean that the congruency chapter is gone. Just the part where you had to prove two triangles are congruent to each other, those ideas are gone. Now, if two things are congruent, you still will have to be answerable for which values are equal to which values on the other shape. So if two shapes are congruent, if it's given that two shapes are congruent, you still have to be able to tell which values are going to be equal on the corresponding sides or angles. So rotation, with this is in context with transformations. Rotation which are not a multiple of 90. They were being tested for construction recently. For example, a rotation of 40 degrees or a rotation of 110 degrees. And I have already uploaded some videos on that. Now onwards, the rotations will only be for 90 degrees. So if it is a grid, you can use shortcuts for rotating those values. And if it is a diagram, you will be asked to construct only rotation which is a multiple of 90 degrees. So you will still need to know, I think, the construction process, but it will not be anything except for 90 degree. All right. The angle symbol, they have changed. We have always seen Cambridge to be writing angles in this form, A, B, C, where B used to have a hat indicating that the angle is on B. Now onwards, they're going to write it like this. they will say angle ABC. So they will use the word angle before writing any angle, and they will not use a hat on top of it. So you just have to know that that the middle number is going to be the vertex of the angle. And when you are writing an angle, you are expected to do the same. Do not go on and keep writing the hat symbology. Also, one important thing, it's not allowed at all to write an angle using only one letter. Or some people would just say B angle B is 90 or B is 90. Those are wrong variations. Do not do that. Writing angle ABC. Angles are always better if you're representing them with 3 alphabets, so that you exactly know which part of the angle you're talking about, because sometimes there are a lot of angles on the same vertex. Okay, so that part is done. So these are the ideas that have been removed from our syllabus. So if you're looking at past papers of these questions, you do not need to know. One section, all right. So now let's conclude. So how do you plan, how to plan for June 2025 according to these changes? Now, there are a couple of ideas that I will tell you. Number one, functions is going to be totally revamped. So graphs of functions, graphical solutions, and functions. You must do all these 3 sections in depth with a lot of examples. Your paper is going to be loaded with functions and graph of functions from now onwards, because they've made it like, an expanded version of the chapter. Before, it did not used to be like this. Now, number one is that. Number two, then there have been like smaller changes. Surds is going to be tested. And then recurring decimals conversion to fractions is going to be tested. Those are important things. Growth and decay is going to be tested for sure. So additions of ideas, that is for sure going to be tested. You must do at least 5 to 10 examples of each of those ideas before you go into exam. Transformation is one chapter that you should be really careful about, because they have reduced the syllabus for transformation in 2 different stages. In 2018, they removed 2 transformations, which was stretch and shear, from our syllabus. And now in 2024, they have removed matrix transformation. They have also removed the knowledge of constructions of many things. For example, if you don't know you don't need to know how to construct a perpendicular bisector, then that implies that you don't need to know how to construct a line of reflection. So there is a lot of change going on there as well. So be careful while doing past paper questions. Some of them might now not be in the scope of our syllabus. So that is one idea that is extremely important that you have to know. Now, let's talk a little about how to plan for your exam. Now, the first idea that you have to follow is make a checklist. If you do not have a checklist, go on to zenematics.com, go into the resources. In the O-level section, I have uploaded a checklist. You can copy it from there. So make a checklist, and what you have to do is you have to have following tabs on that. Notes, if you have done the notes, tick on that topic. Then you have to have P1 worksheet, P1 questions, and P2 questions. Once you have done all of them, you're done with that. Keep a separate note for your problems, because when the exams will come near, you must have a record of all of the questions. For example, you did not know question 1, 3, 7, 11, and that's it. Now, keep a separate tab for that in your checklist. Now, because once the exams are near, you have a lot of papers to take, you have a lot of subjects to sit in for, and the problem rises that you cannot keep on going back and doing the same worksheets that you have already done. So that doesn't make sense at all, and you don't have enough time at that moment as well. It gets very problematic for very good students, because they have done some worksheet in January or February, and by April comes, they have forgotten all of that. That is so problematic for them, because now they are in a dilemma. Should they go back and do the entire worksheet? If they do, they're wasting a lot of time on something they've already done, and it doesn't make sense to them. If you keep a checklist with all the problem questions that you faced in a worksheet, when exams are nearby and you want to revise something, all you have to do is you have to go and look at the problems section and just do those questions. And once you're done with them, a lot of the portion will be revived in your brain as well. So number one idea is to make a checklist. Number two is to keep a problems tab over there, and whenever you have problems, reach out to your teachers. This, by the way, this is going to work for all the subjects as well. Reach out to your teachers, do all the problems, and then do the worksheets at least twice before your Cambridge exam. For easier topics, it's all right. I understand you can do the worksheet once and you'll be done with it. But for harder chapters or longer chapters, or chapters which are in detail, like there's a lot of detail technicalities, for those chapters you should always do worksheet at least twice. Now I understand sometimes you have good days, sometimes you have bad days while studying. If you have a good day, so the idea for a checklist is this, that you don't have to go in order. If you're having a good day, you're feeling like, very pumped up for study, you have a lot of time and you're really energetic about it, go and pick up a bigger section and do it. If you're feeling really down and you're like, oh, I don't want to do maths today, go and pick up the smallest section you see in the checklist, just learn the notes, do the worksheet. For example, if I'm not feeling very nice today, I don't want to do maths, I will not go on and do trigonometry. Okay. What I will go do is I would rather do significant figures. I would rather do estimation. I would rather do standard form, like, really small portions, simultaneous equations or factorization as a matter of fact. So I would just do really small portions if I'm not ready on that day. So keeping a checklist lets you still fill the checklist even if it's a bad day for you. If you're not keeping a checklist and if you're feeling down on that day, what you're going to do is you're just going to skip that day for maths. Do not do that. Do not do that to any subject. If you have a lower day, do something lighter for that subject. So it's a very important idea. Make checklists for every subject. Make problems lists in front of them. Once you've done everything, keep ticking that idea and then mark all your problems in the last section so that when exams are nearby, all you have to revise is a few questions from every worksheet and you'll be ready for the exam. One very important thing I want you guys to do on your mobiles, keep a countdown app. I don't know whichever app you would use, keep a countdown app for number of days that you have for your CIs. And it's very important because say today, there are 5 months right now. So there might be 150 days from today onwards. I'm in the end of November while I'm recording this video. So 150 days are left and almost every one of you have 7 to 8 subjects, right? Say every subject has 2 components. I know sciences have 3. So say every subject has 2 components. So 16 components. And so let's do 15 components. So if you divide, you have 10 days per component. Now, this is a very small amount. Can you really prepare maths paper 1 within 10 days? The answer is it's very hard to do that. And that is the reality that you have to know. Keep a countdown app always, every day. You wake up, you should have that countdown app right in front of you on the main screen of your mobile, and it should tell you how many days you have left. Then you mentally divide it with the number of components that you have, and you should daily check how many days you have left per component. Now, I understand 150 days do seem a lot when you look at them like in total, but if you try to understand that you have to study a lot of components before your exam, there are very few days per component left, and you must plan yourself together. The last advice that I'm going to give you before ending this video is that you have to come out of your comfort zone. So there's one question that I get asked very frequently by students is, "So how do I know whether I'm studying well enough or not?" The answer is very simple. You have to ask yourself, are you still living in your comfort zone? By comfort zone means, are you living a routine life? You wake up, you go to school, you come back, you sleep a little, you wake up, you take a couple of evening classes as academies or tuitions, and then later on you study for a few hours and you sleep. If that is your routine, that is the comfort zone for a student. You have to come out of that comfort zone right now, and you have to put in a lot of number of hours per subject. You have to stay up late at night and study, and you have to reduce your sleeping hours. You have to manage your uh, hours which are being wasted in, say, using screen time or social media apps or that sort of thing. Of course, limit them down. I'm not asking you to, like, eliminate them at all. They are a part of, like, unwinding process as well. So if you're really stressed, working and stressed out, of course you need a couple of hours or a few hours for unwinding process as well. So that is totally all right as well. But you have to come out of your comfort zone. You have to put in a lot of hours into your preparation process. If you will do that, you'll get extraordinary results. Nobody has ever fluked O levels good results. Anybody that you meet with 8 A's or A stars, 9 A's or A stars or higher, at some point in time in their O levels, maybe in the last year, maybe in the last few months, they have done the extraordinary number of hours of studying. It varies, I understand, for everybody, but the process is same. You have to know the notes. You have to know a lot of past paper questions to ace the exam. So my advice is to come out of your comfort zones now so that you can earn a lot of good grades. With that, I'm going to end this video. I think it's already a very long video, and I will make detailed videos on all of the components, all of the portions later on as well. And I think within December, I'll be uploading a lot of videos with that as well. One last thing, for IGCSE and for AQA boards, I'm also attaching a file. So your 90% syllabus is almost the same as O levels. There are some differences. I have highlighted those differences in the columns respective to your syllabus code. So for IGCSEs and AQAs, all of the syllabus component is almost same except for a few differences, and those I have already highlighted over there. So with that, I'm going to wish you guys a lot of luck for your preparation, for your maths exam, and for your grade. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye bye. Allah Hafiz.